Well, after watching and listening to all types of people comment, remark, making foolish statements, getting themselves canceled, I'm going to talk about this particular subject, but in a different way that you've been hearing on TV, on the internet, on radio, whatever medium you listen to. We'll first start with the New York Post. Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin Tyler Robinson deeply indoctrinated with leftist ideology, Utah governor says. Okay? The alleged murder of conservative activist Charlie Kirk was deeply indoctrinated with leftist ideology, a preliminary investigation revealed according to Utah Governor Spencer Cox. Cox noted that Robinson's political leaning has since become very clear to us and to the investigators in an interview with the Wall Street Journal after Kirk was shot and killed Wednesday at Utah Valley University. And folks, university. It is very important to understand that it is in the public school systems and in the universities is where this indoctrination occurs. Now, but wait a minute. The United States of America is a Christian nation, you say. Well, it is. It is. It absolutely is. And I know it makes some people very upset when I speak on that, when I say that. It most certainly is, and as such, gotta make sure I have my star here for everybody to see, so that way you know where I stand. Okay, and so the Christian nation, United States of America, is responsible for overseeing the educational system of the United States of America. And this is what you've created. How did this occur? Well, I'm going to keep on going through another article, and I'm going to show you how this occurred. Okay, now the next one, Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin Tyler Robinson lived with transgender partner. Yes, and so you see, just to make a point, and Charlie Kirk made a correct point. Down here, Charlie Kirk's assassin Tyler Robinson was living with a transgender partner who was in the process of transitioning from male to female. Well, folks, a rooster does not turn into a hen. It doesn't work like that. A law enforcement source confirmed to the Post Saturday, they say. That individual, who has yet to be publicly identified by the authorities, is now fully cooperating with the FBI on its investigation into the fatal shooting of the conservative activist, the sources added. The relationship was first reported by Fox News' Brooke Singman. Okay. Yes, they were roommates. All right. Somewhere here, all right, a neighbor claimed 2 weeks ago several people driving cars with out-of-state plates were seen going in and out. They did not give us a good vibe, the neighbor said. Kirk, 31, was struck in the neck by a single bullet shortly after being posed a question on his American Comeback College speaking tour about transgender mass shooters. And of course, the news media would not. They are very adamant, claiming that it's a lie, it's a falsehood, that there's been a string of mass shootings from transgenders. There, not only has been there a string of them as mass shooters, but in public schools. So somebody asked him a question. Do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters in the last 10 years? Asked attendee Hunter Kozak. All right. Too many, Kirk responded. Do you know how many mass shooters have been in America over the last 10 years? Kozak followed up. Counting or not counting gang violence, the Turning Point USA founder sought to clarify. Kirk was immediately shot afterwards. Somebody didn't want the truth to come out. Now, you Christian fundamentalists, pro-Trumpers, like Charlie Kirk, you forgot. Of course, the Democrat Party, they love this sort of thing, okay? That's beside the point here. Your current president, the one that you championed, that was going to bring Christianity back to the United States of America. Remember, I'll pull it up. Trump against NC anti-bathroom bill. In 2016, this goes all the way back to 2016, the then presidential candidate Donald Trump initially criticized North Carolina's bathroom bill known as House Bill HB 2. Citing the economic backlash against the state, however, his stance shifted, and by July, somebody started speaking in his ear, no, you can't do that. Folks, you have to understand the first reaction is what's in the man's heart. That's right. The first reaction, not the second one. Okay? So this is the guy you supported. Initial criticism. Trump described HB 2 as very, very strong and noted North Carolinians were paying a big price due to economic boycotts. Did he say what he was going to do to counter? Did he say that he stood with North Carolina? No, he did not. So he said, no, leave it the way it is. He argued that transgender people had experienced very few complaints before the law and that the situation should have been left as it was. He also stated that transgender people should use the bathroom they feel as appropriate. So he stood with the other side. And you think that he's going to bring righteousness and Christianity back to the USA? So his shift was not, no, North Carolina is correct and I was wrong. No, that's not what it was. It was, after securing the Republican nomination, Trump later altered his position to support HB 2 in this way. He emphasized that states should be allowed to decide on the matter aligning with Republican Party positions. Folks, for men to pretend to be a woman so that they can peep on women, okay, that's the reason, so that they can peep on women, is not a something for states to decide whether or not. It is a fundamental duty for men to protect women from other men. The Republican Party stance on this matter abdicated men protecting women from other men. That is the reason. But the reasons for these mass shootings coming from confused people is a result of entitlement. Telling people they can be whatever they want to be as a child. No, you cannot be whatever you want to be. This is one of the biggest lies ever been told. And fathers and mothers tell that to their children, and they teach that in public schools. No, you cannot be whatever you want to be. And then, when they try to be whatever it is that they want to be, and they get pushback, these entitled people get angry, and then some of them want to start shooting people. That is how this occurs. It's very simple, folks. It's not hard to understand. Everybody knows about the problem with entitlement these days. Now, so one of the first things I always do to analyze somebody's position, to see if I stand with them, or if I'm indifferent to them, or stand against them, is what they believe biblically. All right, so Charlie Kirk's biblical beliefs is postmillennialism. You can go look it up and you'll find it. And it's a Christian eschatology views that holds that Jesus Christ will return to earth after a future period of unprecedented Christian influence and blessing, calling the millennium where good will gradually triumph over evil, leading to a golden age of peace and prosperity on the earth. Before the second, I guess he never even bothered to read the words of Paul and the words of Cephas. In Cephas was 2 Cephas 3:16, Romans 11. In this view, the Great Commission to disciple the nations, as should read the Gentiles, will be largely successful, transforming the world through the church's influence, ultimately bringing the millennium before, as he said, Christ's return. He obviously didn't read the words of Yehoshua HaMashiach. Now, the next thing I look up is their beliefs concerning anti-Moshiach and anti-Christ. Because you see, folks, the anti-Moshiach is not the anti-Christ, and the anti-Christ is not the anti-Mashiach. Some people will say, what is the difference? I tell you that Christians' anti-Christ is actually Israel's true Mashiach. And I will show you in a minute proof. Charlie Kirk's public statements and emphasis on Christian beliefs suggests he views the Antichrist through a traditional evangelical lens. Well, that tells you all you need to know. Because the traditional evangelical lens of the Antichrist doctrine comes straight from the Catholic Church, and it comes straight from Cyril's Catechetical Lecture, chapter 15. And he says in verse 8, you also will have this sign, and this, as he says, gospel, which is a replacement for glad tidings to Zion, by the way, because God's spell is not glad tidings to Zion. Yet, the glad tidings to Zion was spoken of in the words of the prophets, and this is what Yehoshua HaMashiach and the disciples were referring to. Of the kingdom. That's right, of the kingdom in Israel, in Jerusalem, shall be preached unto all the world as a witness to all nations, and then the end shall come. And he says this. He's claiming, Cyril claimed, as we see, nearly the whole world is now filled with the doctrine of Christ. But what does the scripture say? He says, nearly the whole world. Revelation 12 verse 9 says, the great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. What? So if you want to go with timeline, he says the whole world is filled with the doctrine of Christ. It says here in Revelation 12, the great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. Do you want to go to Strong's Concordance and make sure you understand what you're reading? The great dragon thrown out, that old serpent called the devil, slanderous and falsely accusing. That word is very, very, very important. See, you didn't know that the devil means slanderous, did you? But it's right here in Strong's Concordance. And Satan, which means adversary, who deceives, causes the whole world to wander. So let me ask you a question. Is the whole world today wandering? Yes, it is. You know it, and I know it. To go astray, deceive, err, seduce, wander, be out of the way, deceive, mislead, gone astray, to cause to stray from the straight path. You know, straight versus transgender, LGBTQPEDO. Yeah, I said that. It's so rife within Western civilization that you, Western civilization, are not able to extricate yourself from it. It's taught in all of your schools. It is even accepted in your religions. In fact, if I remember correctly, and I'm pulling up new stuff here all the time, I want to stay on track. In fact, Vatican and rainbow flag. I just saw that a couple of weeks ago, I do believe. And there you have it. The U.S. Embassy to the Holy See flies the rainbow flag during the June Pride Month as demonstration of U.S. support for LGBTQ advocacy. Within the Vatican City, in connection to the Catholic Church, members of the LGBTQPEDO Catholic groups have processed and displayed rainbow-colored symbols, including fans and a pride cross. There have also been controversies regarding the Vatican's 2025 Jubilee Year logo, which some perceive as similar to an LGBTPEDO rainbow, and an incident in May the 2025 wherewith Leo was filmed passing a person holding a flag that some incorrectly identify as a rainbow pride flag. U.S. policy still today. State Department supports Global Equality Fund, which funds LGBTPEDO advocacy globally. The U.S. Embassy states that it respects and promotes the equality and human dignity of all people, including the LGBTQIAPEDO community, and this is a reason for displaying the flag. And you think this country can be saved? You think this world as we know it can be saved? Are you kidding me? Have you not read Revelation 9, where it talks about literally nuclear weapons being launched, even shows the colors of the ribbon of St. George on the launchers, on the missiles themselves? It's written right there in Revelation 9 verse 18, 17 and 18. It's written right there. So, having said that, so what I'm saying is, are people like you, Charlie Kirk, going to deny that Revelation 9 verses 17 and 18 are going to happen? It is a 100% guarantee that it's going to happen, folks. And it will kill 1/3 of men upon the earth in a matter of a little over a year. No other weapon that man has formed could do such a thing. Russia deploys short-range ballistic missiles. Romania breached by drone attack. Breaking war news with the enforcer. I urge you, if you have time, to watch this channel, and or just to keep up with it. You don't have to watch the whole thing because there's a lot. Or you can go and look at the comments right here, or this the statement he makes. Russia has deployed Iskander missiles in Kaliningrad, which are believed to be aimed at Warsaw and Vilnius. These missiles appear armed and ready to fire at moment's notice towards NATO countries. Russian drones entered Romanian airspace hours ago and were chased down by Romanian F-16s. The drones were lost over the airspace and the wreckage was found later. Polish forces are flooding into the Suwalki Gap Those of you who don't know what the Suwalki Gap is, you better find out. As Polish citizens volunteered by the thousands to join the Polish armed forces in response to recent Russian drone attacks. Germany is also preparing a rapid deployment of forces into Lithuania at the outbreak of war. Russian vehicles in Grodno had been spotted with the new offensive markings, suggesting this may be an invasion of NATO. The U.S. has moved forces to Puerto Rico against Venezuela and also seized a tuna boat today. Ukraine has landed massive hits on key Russian factories and infrastructure in drone attacks overnight. This was just posted 10 hours ago. If you think that this, where is it? Post-millennialism, whatever you call it, is somehow going to work without Revelation 9 occurring. Now, when I say Revelation, I'm also including the multiple, not single, meteor, star, whatever it is, falling from the sky into the Mediterranean Sea, causing a smoke buildup all around the Mediterranean Sea. You didn't know? It's because you didn't read. You didn't read the beginning of Revelation 9. That is what's going to trigger the coming nuclear war. That's right. And you think that this somehow, post-millennialism, as they say, is going to fix it. Going to keep the world the way it is. Until, as they say, Jesus comes. So what I also want to point out to you is that Charlie Kirk would also, if he believes the traditional interpretation of, as they say, the Antichrist, then he believes this. And what comes to pass after that, he says next, when therefore you shall see the abominable desolation which was spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, that would be the temple, let him read and understand. And again, if any man shall say to you, lo, here is the Christ, or lo, there, believe it not. What was all this referring to? Okay. So if we go to that particular statement, where is it? Matityahu 24 verse 14. No, it's not Matthew, folks. In spite of what you've been told. You've been told a lot of lies, folks. What was that again? Was it 24:14? I believe it was. Now, it says, when you shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet. Oh, wait a minute. Is it make or is it stand? Or is it either? Appointed, brought, Here's my point, folks. To abide, appoint. See, appoint does not necessarily mean to abide. Want you to listen carefully. To bring. To bring does not necessarily mean to stand up. The word can mean to stand up, but it doesn't have to be standing up. Transitively or intransitively, used in various applications, literally or figuratively. So, appointed. Was this appointed? Yes, it was. I think it is time for me to read to you some about the ancient Rome, Judea, Caligula, and the Temple of Jerusalem. In the previous post, we looked at Caligula's reception of Philo's whatever in Rome. The meeting, documented by a Jewish grammarian, is invaluable as it portrays one of the few non-Roman perspectives on the Emperor Caligula, elsewhere portrayed as mad, bad, and dangerous to know. We'll go down here, the Temple of Jerusalem. Within it, the holiest of holies, or Kodesh Kodesh, lay at the symbolic heart of Judaism. It was provided as a focal point for the Jews, both at home and in Judea, dispersed across the Jewish diaspora. It would continue to do so physically until the temple's destruction in 70 CE. Spiritually, we could argue into this present age. That would be correct. And Augustus, Caligula's predecessors, had respected the Jews' autonomy, allowing them to continue worshiping as long as they made token sacrifices to the emperor. Tiberius strayed from this permissive path, but not as much as Caligula, who seems to have taken the Jews' refusal to recognize him as a god, both personally and with ire. Before we look at Caligula's attempt to desecrate the temple, we should remind ourselves of the complicated relationship between the Jews' freedom to worship and their participation in emperor worship, the imperial cult. First and most important thing to consider as Judaism prohibits the worship of idols, not least of those representing figures of power. A passage in the Mishnah, 2nd and 3rd century, censures the worship of statues, holding that anything in their hand, whether it be a staff, a bird, or a sphere. The Mishnah is rather ambiguous, though the common denominator in these objects is that symbols of power. It is likely that at the time the Mishnah was written, during the height of the Roman Empire, necessitated such ambiguity. But the Babylonian Talmud, which was written later, is more direct, singling out imperial status made for worship as idols to be avoided. The Jews could sacrifice on an emperor's behalf. They just couldn't honor him the same as a god. The difference is crucial, and it was a source of contention between Caligula and the Jews. Indeed, when Philo met Caligula during his embassy, he assured with the emperor that nobody excelled the Jews in loyalty to the imperial house as expressed with prayers, preparations, votive offerings, and quantity of sacrifices, not only at general festivals but on a daily basis. Judging by his decision to desecrate the Temple of Jerusalem with his image, Caligula seems to have been unconvinced. So he made a decision. Okay, let's look at the word. He appointed. That's right. So it didn't have to be actually set up, but he appointed it to be set up. In fact, if you look at the definition of the word, that's exactly what it's saying. It didn't say that it actually was set up. It was appointed to be set up. So, anti-Mashiach began with Caligula. All right? Not only that, Emperor Hadrian did finally pull off what Caligula couldn't do. But Yehoshua was talking about when what Caligula did when he appointed the desecration of the temple. He started a revolt, a rebellion. A word that the Christians use, falling away. If they bothered to read Strong's Concordance, they would see rebellion, revolt. But no, they want to insert their own definitions to change the narrative, to change the truth into a lie. Emperor Hadrian erected a temple to the Roman god Jupiter on the site of the former Jewish temple in Jerusalem after refounding the city as a Roman colony, calling it Aelia Capitolina. And it was him who named it Palestine, who named Judea Palestine. So the name Palestine has everything to do with anti-Mashiach. Now, you will say, well, the anti-Mashiach, or you say Antichrist, but you says come in the last days because this is what this fella says. Your church fathers. And where he says, writing concerning the matter, the Apostle Paul gave a manifest sign, saying, for that day shall not come except there coming and falling away first, and a man of sin be revealed, a son of destruction, who opposes all things, and exalts himself against all that is called Elohim, or that is worshipped. So he sits, or he... Hold on. Remember the word that we just learned. This word. The word means to appoint, to be standing up or sitting in the temple. He appoints. You know what that word means. You see what your leaders have done? You want to wipe away all of history. Pretend it doesn't exist. Y'all do a lot of pretending. The proof of that is your Easter egg celebration, where you tell your children that rabbits lay eggs. You do that with everything, and then you wonder why you have this issue where people are shooting up, or confused people are shooting up schools and attacking people like Charlie Kirk. So we go to the scripture. We see it was appointed. Okay. Let me see if I can remember what that scripture is. It's 2 Thessalonians 2, I believe. Come on now. All right. Why is this happening? I'm there. I'll click for chapter. I did. Well, I'll have to start over. I guess I have a faster computer coming soon here. 2 Thessalonians 2. It's trying to download new stuff, and I instruct a computer to wait 7 days, but apparently it decided it has other ideas. All right. Now, folks, the name of the Mashiach is not Jesus. As I have showed you many times, if he is a Hebrew Mashiach, then he has a Hebrew name, not a European name. So the Hebrew name is Yehoshua, not Jesus. Let's continue. By the coming of our Mashiach, Yehoshua, and by gathering together to him, that you not be shaken in mind or troubled, neither by ruach, nor by word, nor by letters from any of us, as that day of Mashiach is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day before there come a not defection of the truth, but a revolt. There we go. Revolt. So we just read that Philo told Caligula that there was no other group of people in the Roman Empire that was more devoted to the Roman Empire than the Jews. When Caligula appointed his graven image as Jupiter to be placed in the temple, to desecrate the temple, the Jews defected. They revolted. But you see, folks, you see what they even did here? They wanted to make sure that you did not see what it meant. They wanted to make sure that this fell in line with Cyril's lies. But I just showed you what the word meant. It meant revolt. And Caligula was that man. You say it's supposed to be at the end times. Yochanan said the opposite. Just let me show you. Oh, hold on. First Yochanan 2, and verse 18. He said, "Dear children, this is the last hour, the last..." Clearly that's not correct, unless it was the last hour for the temple in Jerusalem. Uh-oh. Either he is lying or he told the truth. Clearly it wasn't the last hour for the whole world. Now, then you Christians would say that he is lying. He was speaking of the temple in Jerusalem. Because it was concerning the one who would desecrate the temple. So even he said that anti-Moshiach, the time for him to desecrate the temple is in the very next, or actually it would be that in that hour, that particular hour that they're living in right then and there. Because he says we are in the last hour. The last one. That would be the one where anti-Mashiach would desecrate or would appoint the desecration of the temple in Jerusalem. So you people, you think that somehow that the temple in Jerusalem must be rebuilt so that it can be desecrated yet again. You are mad. You're crazy. Because Yochanan says right now, at that hour that they were living in, the hour of anti-Mashiach desecrating the temple, he said, "Dear children, this is the last hour. As you have heard, the anti-Mashiach is coming, but there are already multiples." Who is he talking about? Nero, Caligula, Vespasian, and Titus. Because you see, Titus destroyed the temple by orders of his daddy, Emperor Vespasian. And then, after the temple was destroyed, Titus then placed a graven image there. Then Hadrian, if that wasn't enough, Hadrian, where is it at? Emperor Hadrian did it again. Multiples. Last hour. Emperor Hadrian erected a temple to the Roman god Jupiter on the site of the former Jewish temple. We just read that. You have been lied to, folks. And then he does this. And to prove to you folks that this statement, this whole statement by Cyril in his 15 catechetical lecture is a lie. We go to But this aforesaid Antichrist is to come when the time of the Roman Empire shall have been fulfilled. Now, we stop right there. We go to Romans 11. Yeah, it's trying to download after I instructed it not to. Okay, Romans 11. Verse 25, for I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise. Who is he talking to? He's talking to the Romans. He was chastising the Romans for believing that they replaced Israel. The whole scripture is all about that. And told them what was going to happen to the Romans in the last days. That partial blindness happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles. Now, the fullness of the Gentiles, that means the filling up of time. That means when the time of the Gentiles comes to the end. Now, for proof of that, I don't need this anymore. We go to, I believe it's in Matthew 24. Or it's in Luke 21. We'll go to Luke 21. I do believe it's there. Unbelievably slow. Luke 21. Okay. And when you see Jerusalem encompassed with armies, that was Vespasian's armies, led by Titus, then know that its desolation is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let them which are in the midst of it depart, and let them not that which are in the rural areas go back into Jerusalem, because these are the days of vengeance against Jerusalem, that all things which were written may be fulfilled. But woe to them, that was written in the beginning of Zechariah 14. And them that give suck in those days, for there shall be distress in the land, and wrath upon this people, the Jews. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and will be led away into captivity into all the Gentiles. And Jerusalem will be trodden down by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles is fulfilled. And so Vespasian speaks of this. So, Vespasian says, when the Roman Empire shall have been fulfilled, when the days of the Romans, when the Romans are finished. That's what Romans 11 here is talking about. When the time of the Gentiles is fulfilled. When the time of the Gentiles, aka the Romans, is fulfilled. Then what happens? Well, according to Cyril, the Antichrist comes. But according to Luke 21, Mashiach comes. According to Paul, Mashiach comes. So, this is where I disagree with Charlie Kirk. Because, and so all Israel, that's all 12 tribes of Israel, including Dan, shall be saved. What part of all Israel shall be saved do you not understand? And Paul pointed out in this particular chapter that the rise of the Gentiles, the rise of the Romans, was the fall of the Jews. But then comes the rise of the Jews and the fall of the Gentiles. If you would just read Romans 11, but you don't want to do that because you don't like the words of Paul. You think he's crazy, just like you think I'm crazy. You don't want to read right here where after the Roman Empire is finished, completely. Destroyed by nuclear weapons, by the way. There shall be sign in the moon and the stars, and upon the earth distress upon the what? That's tribulation upon the Gentiles.